Hello, our friends, patrons, family, membership, family, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well, and 4 a.m. and all is well.
It's a little early, but here we are.
Here we are. I was almost gonna do this before we went to sleep. Just feels like we're on the verge of something very, very big, and so let's use our consciousness to dampen whatever blows are being dealt to humanity at this point in time. I've been watching this like a hawk, and now you can see 211 of 466 earthquakes that USGS is showing, because they don't show all of them, in this map area. This is all centered around Mount Rainier. I think absolutely, I could sort this. As you can see, these are small quakes. That the largest is 2.1. Let's look at the newest first. So small, 0.4, 0.4, 0.8, 1.1. They're not big. However, if you're familiar with watching for eruptions, when you look at the depth, 0.2 kilometers, negative 2.4, negative 2.2, negative, it's indicating to me, it indicates the possibility, and I'm no expert, that there is maybe some magma on the move. It's very, very interesting that the Native American legends always will tell you that when there's a big one, like again, we had what would be, somewhere probably between a 9.0 and a 9.5 off the Cascadian coastline back in 1700, or we think it's about 1700. That was a huge one. And here we are going out a little bit farther. Cascadia, the Juan de Fuca plate. This is the Juan de Fuca, which is being subducted. In other words, it's going underneath the plate next to it. And, this makes one of the most deadliest types of fault lines you can encounter on the planet. So, is this an indicator, as the Native American legends say, that when the big ones come, these mountains, the volcanoes go, and the volcanoes start to become active? And here, we're looking at Mount Rainier, but also keep in mind there are other ones around here. Of course, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, and Mount Shasta. Even, one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, I think, Mount Shasta. I love it. The energy there is just fabulous. And we have wonderful family in that area. We have wonderful family in this area. So, this is very, very concerning. Do not want to scare anybody. It could be a nothing burger. And again, I do believe Mother Earth is trying to do her best to keep us all safe.
Right, let's stay really, really grounded with this one. It's definitely a concern. I'm looking at it and I'm watching it, and then surrounded with the other things and the visions that I have had. Timing may have been off, but one thing that was, that was on target, what I saw was a volcano, and I saw the pine trees in front of it. And if you look at these pictures, it looks exactly like I saw in my vision. So I don't know what to make of that. I just want people to be grounded and feel safe. And I think we can dampen anything that's going on and diffuse. I like that word, diffuse any pressure that's building up in that area, and just allow it to kind of fizzle out. Like a candle, like a wick that just kind of burns out on its own.
Well, downstream in Guatemala, we have a 5.7, a couple of 4.8, so there's a little swarm of 5. Now, these are bigger than what we're seeing up here in Washington. And, otherwise, this is kind of a normal splattering of events. We did have a 6.3. If we go back a little bit, let's go to 30 days significant, just to see where the significant ones were. And there's that 6.3 I was going to mention over in New Zealand. There was that 5.7 in Guatemala. Just to look at the whole pressure situation in the Pacific. Over here, this again is 30 days, what they call significant, 6.1 in the Philippines. And then we have some, this one over here is Peru, 5.6. Over in the Caribbean, 5.7, Dominican Republic. It's not just the earthquakes. In fact, the flooding in Ruidoso, New Mexico, again, this is an area where we do have family members, the EEARTS evolutionary family members here in Ruidoso. This is a beautiful area, and they've been hit with natural disasters. Just recently, they lost like half the town recently. And again, whether it's wildfires or floods, it really makes me think of mud flood. Jared Boosters did an interesting one last night, just showing Tartarian bathrooms. And again, when we look at these ancient photos, so often we're wondering, where is everybody, as you have these cities that are barely occupied by humans, yet they're so big. And where are all the people? And when we look at why are all the buildings under mud, more people are starting to ask these questions. Thank goodness. This is just an insane situation. This Rio Ruidoso River rose 20 feet in 30 minutes. Now, there goes a house flying by. Oh my God. Again, prayers to everybody in this area. Homes are now completely flooded as water levels near the Rio Ruidoso River in New Mexico surged 20 feet in 30 minutes. How can you explain 2 100-year floods in a week? No. Actually, 4. There's 4 major events. You have Max Velocity was just talking about this. Because what we also have going on is Chicago, and we're going to take a look at that too. Again, more scenes from the Rio Ruidoso. Now, this area is close to a military base, so this makes me wonder. And immediately when I told Cindy about these events, she says this is warfare, and that's the immediate impression. And I think maybe the power structure in place is okay with people realizing it really is warfare. But again, they have us subdivided into BRICS and NATO, and China and the U.S. And is it a coincidence that China has come out and stated on the record that they will own the weather by 2025, control the weather in 2025? This is 2025. And you have the U.S. saying the same thing. We're going to own the weather by 2025. You actually have comments put out there by public officials decades ago talking about weather warfare. And then, you'll have at the same time public officials laugh about it when they're asked about geoengineering. It's like, wait a minute, there's declassified documents. Why are you saying there's no geoengineering? You have even companies that say, yeah, we were contracted to cloud seed yesterday. And meanwhile, then you have politicians still saying there's no geoengineering. Their noses are going and getting so big. It's like what Cindy's saying. They're gaslighting.
Gaslighting to such a high degree. They're just doing the things and saying, what? We're not doing anything. What's wrong with you people? There's no evidence of this, as the evidence is building up all around them. I don't see how they can look at themselves in the mirror, let alone look at a camera and say that there's really nothing going on. And what really is frustrating me lately is there's been laws that are passed for things to not happen in the sky any longer, but they're still happening. Who is being held accountable? How? Why? I mean, do we need to, would it matter if we picked up the phone and called some of these places and talked to them about it? I don't know. I kind of think not, because the laws would not have gotten it put into place if people were not already complaining. We are doing our part to the best of our ability, but I mean, they're just rolling over people. They're rolling over them as if their voices don't matter. And this is so wrong. You know how many people are being killed, and pets and livestock and food and on and on and on, because these beings, they don't want to budge. They don't want to do anything. They're just going to do what they do.
And just look at these comments. So this is Craig Cease. He has a PhD, a meteorologist, right? This person says, I wonder if there's been widespread cloud seeding in the country at large. All these floods is kind of bizarre. No, it's summertime and thunderstorms pop up and stall out. Again, anybody that has a PhD by their name means they're heavily invested in the system. They've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on their education. And again, when you look at what it costs to get a PhD after your name, and you realize that investment in the system becomes a tool to keep you speaking party line. This is the bottom line. You could see this. These purples, pretty colors here. 50 to 200 plus. Once in a 50 to once in 200 plus year event. As you can see, these are the rainfall totals. It keeps them from telling the truth, because they cover up for the system because, they're too invested in the system. I mean, when you have doctors that literally are told that you can only spend 5 to 7 minutes with a patient, and my medical emergency, I was blessed. Everybody I met, I really liked, and I did have much more trust in them than what I thought I was going to have, me going to the hospital. That's only under the most dire of circumstances. Yet, they were a blessing. And I did see everybody that I encountered was well-intentioned. But do they understand, how the schooling has been taken over, how all this has been hijacked and turned into one big money-making machine? Here you go. This is Into Thin Air. He does a nice job. Chicago flood looks crazy strange. Wild-looking storm cells popping up as the flood begins. Again, we can watch the different radars being used and the different energies being used. It's not just cloud seeding. It's more than that. This person again is questioning the narrative. Over 5 inches, 7 inches in some spots. In 90 minutes. Flooding's insane. Do I understand this correctly? Over the past 4 days, massive flash floods in Texas, New Mexico, Chicago, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Arkansas, but it's just typical thunderstorms stalling out. Yeah, sure. This is the 4th once in a 1,000-year flood event in a week in 4 different states. Yeah, and, again, they're going to say there's nothing to see here. How stupid do they think we are? And looking over here, at least 161 still missing. This was Texas, again, statewide death total rose to 111, right? And 173 unaccounted for statewide. I don't think we've ever gotten true stats from Katrina, from Maria, from Harvey, and all these. I don't think we've ever gotten the absolute true stats. I personally don't think it's I think it's pretty much impossible to really know when you get down to it. This was huge. This was unprecedented. By the way, a very, very similar event did happen back in the 80s, but don't think it wasn't possible because, again, ultimately, and this is even going and taking a step aside from the fact that there are what I would call ultra-terrestrials that are really running the show and have been running the show. But the fact is, again, we have declassified documents. This is Durham, North Carolina. Yet again, and by the way, North Carolina, the Appalachians, New Mexico, Four Corners, these are two of almost everybody's areas to think of. Where do you go during this time period? Where would be a safe place? I mean, we made videos on this saying, again, the Appalachians, the Ozarks, and the Four Corners are what come to mind. And I do think, again, there's an awful lot of people with that mindset of homesteading, especially in the Appalachians and, around, North Carolina, the upstate of South Carolina, northern Georgia. There's tons of people that are homesteading in these areas. And, of course, other areas too. What does this do? This is, again, something that makes you know that mud flood could happen really quick. And again, this is not fear-based. This is like, you better pay attention and understand what's going on. Because again, you could find yourself under 20 feet of water in just a few moments. Meanwhile, these storms, including JFK and LaGuardia, closed major airports. So, JFK, LaGuardia, as well as other major airports hit big delays. And, here is Ruidoso, right here. It's up in the mountains, absolutely beautiful. Alamogordo, this area as well. When you look at Holloman Air Force Base, and White Sands there, it's really close. So, let's just say theoretically, in a covert war, would China target this area? Well, I wonder how many people live up in this area that are somehow connected with the Air Force Base and the military. Maybe it's also about softening up an area that you might expect people to flee to in case of war or some sort of major event like that. Would they flee to the mountains? People have fled to the mountains. When you look to all sorts of wars throughout history, mountains make tougher places to flush out. Again, what one person would call a terrorist, the other person might call a freedom fighter, especially when your home is being invaded. So, Las Cruces down here, again, this was one of my number one spots, is this area here around the Gila National Forest in the border of Arizona and New Mexico. And we did ourselves, live up this area here for a year. And I felt very safe there, honestly. I felt very at peace there. And the one thing we didn't have there were ticks. And, this is part of the other side of things. Emergency room visits for tick bites near record level this summer across the U.S. Everybody's at risk. I've had Lyme disease, and right before my appendix went, I was bit by several ticks. I've taken dozens off of me, and probably 3 dozen ticks off of me in the year. But 2 of them stand out because they left scars. And one of them actually caused a blister, like a bubbling blister. And I do think that it had something to do with overloading my system. The surgeon who worked on me was really curious about it. And in fact, another, again, we have a very small town near us. And somebody else in town also was in a similar age to me, in relatively good shape, and was bit by a tick and had to go into the emergency room and had a really hard time with it out of the blue. There's co-infections besides Lyme. There's Rocky Mountain spotted fever. There's Babesia. There's so many co-infections. To me, it's pretty obvious ticks are a weapon of war. They are a vector of disease. And this is all over the country. It's not just up in the Northeast, but people are finding that there's more ticks. I actually think, and this will sound crazy to some, but I actually think ticks are not indigenous to our realm. I think they're actually coming in from the lower astral realm. And I do think, again, when we realize the beings that have controlled our world are lower astral realm entities, they're demonic. That's what they are. They utilize these things. And then, of course, we have Plum Island. Why in the world would you ever make anything worse? It doesn't make any sense to make anything worse. Well, we're going to make it worse, and then we're going to try to eradicate it. Yeah, sure. Tell us another. When's Santa Claus coming? Again, this is part of the big wake up. And then you have that alpha gal syndrome. This is a serious, potentially life-threatening allergy, they say, tick-borne disease. It's a molecule that's naturally produced in the bodies of most mammals, but not in people. It's found in the saliva of some ticks. Ticks can transfer this from their saliva into a person's blood. And this is where you get that red meat allergy thing, where no longer do you can't tolerate red meat. It's interesting. It's really, really interesting. I do think there are natural changes, and we're gonna do a video up on Heart's Home. Yes, Heart's Home, talking about ascension symptoms, because again, the system mimics everything that's happening naturally. They understand what's going to happen naturally, and what people will naturally have tendencies to experience during ascension. And what they do is create problems that mimic that and confuse you. By the way, Berlin, Germany, summons Chinese ambassador after warship targeted German plane with laser. Germany is blisteringly angry and has summoned the Chinese ambassador after its military alleged that China's PLA, People's Liberation Army, again, that's perfect naming in this world. Because what did the People's Liberation Army do? It didn't liberate the people. It liberated them, millions of them, of their lives. Because, again, when the big revolution, which Mao, again, was funded by you can't get any more capitalist than the people that funded Mao. Again, these same old families, those Rockefellers, those Red Shields, they funded that communist revolution because, again, it makes them profits. So, again, communism is just a tool. And this is not communal living. This is, again, they take something that is really a potential for peace, like people understanding, maybe looking at things differently and thinking of truly sharing things more evenly and equally. Again, talk to Musk, Bezos, Gates, and all the rest of those billionaires out there, 47 included, about sharing equally. Do you think any of them would ever give up their wealth to, again, share equally and liberate the people of the world? No. And neither would Xi and Putin, because they're wealthy too. This is, again, part of the big system. It's just part of what they do. So people's liberation? No. People's subjugation army, again, anybody that goes against them, they will be liberated of their 3D bodies. Well, anyway, I digress. They targeted a German aircraft with a laser during a European Union joint operation. So we could see the bigger picture that's going on. And I do think that if they could have, they would have already started the war. Would have happened 18 months ago or so. I do think we are changing the timelines. And I even think we don't even have to have the war. Maybe, it has to be something, because I think that, again, the war is ultimately going to unite people to get to the point where they understand that the war is just there to take your attention away from what's really going on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. So everyone, stay safe out there. Pay attention to information and warnings that they're sending out to people, and do your best to be a good person and enjoy nature. I mean, she's very, very colorful and she's very beautiful, but she can also be put against people. So be safe out there.
Yes, absolutely. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Please do share your comments. Again, make sure you are still subscribed. Try to put these videos in other places, again, like Reddit and these different forums where we could work to awaken others. It literally will save lives when we work to awaken others. And ultimately, that's our goal, is to lift people up into a new consciousness and try to save as many as we possibly can. As always, much love, source bless, and namaste.
Namaste.